My in-laws gifted us a couples retreat. You two need to reconnect, they insisted. But when we arrived, they were already there with a full itinerary planned. What we decided to do instead left them speechless. When my in-laws, Bob and Susan, gifted my wife, Jessica, and me a couples retreat to Napa Valley, I had mixed feelings. You two need to reconnect, they said, emphasizing how the trip would strengthen our bond. Given the challenges Jessica and I had faced recently, a getaway sounded perfect. Little did I know, this trip would unveil hidden tensions and lead to unexpected confrontations. Upon arriving at the picturesque Vineyard Resort, Jessica and I were taken aback to find Bob and Susan already there, waiting for us in the lobby. "Surprise!" Susan exclaimed, her arms outstretched. Bob added, "We thought it would be wonderful to share this experience together." Jessica and I exchanged bewildered glances but masked our disappointment with forced smiles. The first evening set the tone for the days to come. Susan presented us with a meticulously planned itinerary: sunrise yoga sessions, wine tastings, group dinners, and even couples counseling workshops. While some activities appealed to us, the lack of alone time was glaring. Jessica, sensing my unease, whispered, "Let's try to make the best of it." As the days progressed, the strain became palpable. During a wine blending session, Bob dominated the conversation, dismissing my suggestions. At dinner, Susan would subtly critique Jessica's choices, from her meal selections to her attire. The constant oversight was suffocating. One afternoon, seeking a brief escape, Jessica and I decided to explore a nearby trail. Informing her parents, Susan's face tightened. "But we have the pottery class scheduled," she reminded us. Jessica responded, "We need some time for ourselves." Susan's sigh was heavy with disapproval, but she relented. The culmination came during a group therapy session Susan had arranged. The therapist prompted us to share grievances. Susan began, "I feel that our efforts to help are sometimes unappreciated." Bob nodded in agreement. Jessica, her patience worn thin, responded, "We appreciate your intentions, but this was meant to be our retreat. We needed space to reconnect without external influences." Bob's face flushed. "We only wanted to support you too," he defended. I interjected, "Support is valued, but boundaries are essential. We need to navigate our relationship independently." The conversation extended into the evening. Tears were shed, voices were raised, but ultimately understanding was reached. Bob and Susan acknowledged their overreach, expressing a desire to mend fences. We agreed that moving forward, open communication and respect for boundaries would be paramount. The remainder of the retreat was more relaxed. Jessica and I carved out moments for ourselves while her parents engaged in separate activities. The experience, though tumultuous, strengthened our relationship and set a precedent for future interactions with Bob and Susan. So after that awkward therapy session, things chilled out a bit. I won't lie, it felt like we were finally getting some space. Jessica and I had a couple quiet breakfasts on our own, walked the vineyard trails. We even skipped the group cheese-making class and just sat under a giant oak tree talking like we hadn't in months. But the peace didn't last. On day 5, things shifted. We came back to our suite after a morning hike and our key card didn't work. Thought it was just deactivated, no big deal. Went to the front desk. "Hi, I think our card isn't working in room 203, I said. The receptionist looked confused, typed something, then hesitated. "It shows the reservation was canceled this morning." "What?" I stared at her. She turned her screen slightly toward me. "The reservation was canceled by the person who made the original booking. That would be Susan." Jessica's face turned pale. "You've got to be kidding me." "No ma'am," the woman replied. "We've moved your belongings to the front office storage until it's sorted." We walked over and saw our bags just sitting there by the bell desk. Like we'd been kicked out of a dorm. Jessica called her mom right away. "Why did you cancel our room?" Susan, sounding completely unfazed, said, "Oh honey, I just thought since the rest of the itinerary is shared, it'd be better if we all stayed together in the villa." "What villa?" "The one we upgraded to. It has 4 rooms and a shared kitchen. So much more cozy." Jessica just looked at me. She was trying to stay calm, but her voice cracked a little when she said, "You had no right." Susan just went, "Let's talk about it over dinner. We're making pasta tonight." We didn't go. That night, we got a cheap motel about 10 minutes down the road. Not as nice as the Vineyard Resort, obviously, but we needed space. Needed to think. But then the twist hit. Next morning, I went back to the resort to grab something we left behind in the gym locker room. While there, I ran into Marcy, the woman who ran the couple's workshop. Super nice lady, mid-40s, big smile kind of person. She looked confused to see me. "Hey, weren't you signed up for the extended couples growth seminar?" "No," I said. "We did the 1-hour session. That was it." She looked even more confused. Your mother-in-law signed all 4 of you up for the full-day version. Said you and Jessica were excited about deep work. She told me you'd confirmed everything. I just laughed. Loud. Of course she did. Jessica and I hadn't agreed to that. Hadn't even heard of it. But that's not even the worst part. Back at the motel, Jessica got a text from her cousin. Hey, I saw the retreat photos. Looks beautiful. Your mom is posting some really sweet stuff about you two reconnecting. Jessica opened Facebook. There were photos. Lots of them. Us at the wine tasting, me awkwardly sitting during pottery class, and a blurry one of Jessica wiping her eyes at the therapy session. The captions? So proud of these two for doing the work. Reconnecting, growing, healing. Families who retreat together, stay together. Jessica went quiet. For a long time. Then she said, this isn't just overbearing. This is straight up manipulative. And she was right. We weren't just on a trip anymore. We were being used like props in some weird self-congratulatory show. That's when we started planning our own itinerary. But not one they'd expect. So yeah, Jessica and I were done. The retreat wasn't about us. It was about Susan's narrative, how she saved our marriage, how she stepped in when things were falling apart. She'd built a whole fantasy, and we were the puppets dancing in it. After that Facebook post, Jessica blocked her mom. First time she'd ever done that. And me? I was angry. Not yelling, throwing things angry. But the kind of quiet angry that burns in your chest and makes you start making plans. So we decided to disappear for a bit. We didn't tell anyone where we were going. We drove out of Napa, no destination. Just kept driving south. Ended up in Big Sur. Checked into a tiny cabin inn with no cell signal, no TV, no internet. Just us. That's when we started talking. Really talking. Jessica admitted something that stopped me cold. She's done this before, she said. What do you mean? She stared at the fireplace for a second, then said, in college, I started dating this guy. First guy I was ever serious about. We planned a road trip. 2 days before we were supposed to leave, he ghosted me. Never heard from him again. I frowned. Okay. A year later, I found out Mom called him. Told him I had unresolved trauma from my childhood. That I wasn't emotionally stable enough for a relationship. She told him it was best to step away. I just sat there, stunned. And the worst part? She continued. She acted like she was comforting me. Like, oh honey, maybe it's for the best. He didn't deserve you. And I believed her. I wanted to punch something. It wasn't just about this trip anymore. This wasn't helicopter parenting. It was control. Deep, manipulative control disguised as love. And the twist? That villa they upgraded to wasn't free. Bob and Susan had used our credit card to pay for it. I got the alert 3 days later, once we hit a diner with Wi-Fi. $2,832.75 charged to our joint travel account. Labeled, Vineyard Estate Villa Upgrade, 5 nights. I stared at it, thinking it had to be a mistake. I called the front desk. Oh yes, that was charged to the card on file. It was approved by the guest listed under the primary booking. Mrs. Susan, redacted. She used Jessica's maiden name like she was still in charge. Jessica was livid. She called the bank to dispute it. But the resort policy was airtight. They claimed it was authorized because Susan had the booking under a shared family name. Now we were out almost $3,000, and still being painted as the ungrateful kids to everyone back home. The worst part? Jessica's own sister texted her something like, Mom said you guys are going through a tough time emotionally. Just know we're here for you. She's worried sick. That was the last straw. This wasn't just a toxic vacation anymore. This was a pattern. A long, messed-up pattern of control, gaslighting, and manipulation wrapped in fake love and smiling brunches. So we made a decision. We weren't going back to Napa. We weren't going to the villa. We weren't calling, texting, or explaining. We were going to do something that would finally flip the narrative. And it started with an email. One single, perfectly worded email that would make Bob and Susan realize exactly what they'd done. And what was coming next. We drove back home a week later. Didn't say a word to anyone. While Susan kept posting healing and bonding photos, pretending we were all one big happy family, we stayed quiet. No calls. No messages. Not even to her sister. Then came the email. Jessica wrote it. It was short but brutal. Here's what it said. Subject. Stop. Mom, this trip wasn't about love. It wasn't about us. It was about you. About how things look to your friends. About how you're always the hero in every story. You took away our space. You took our money. You disrespected our marriage. And the worst part? You lied to people behind our backs. Told them we were healing, while using our private moments for Facebook likes. You didn't save our marriage. You almost ruined it. We're done playing along. From now on, we'll be making our own choices. And we won't be needing your gifts anymore. Jessica, she didn't sign it love, or your daughter or anything. Just her name. Clean. Final. We blocked her parents on everything. But the real twist? A week later, Susan showed up at our door. Tears. Shaking hands. Holding a binder full of printed emails, schedules, and screenshots. I was just trying to help, she said. I know you think that, Jessica replied. But it's not true. Bob stood behind her, silent. He wouldn't even look at me. Then Jessica asked a question that shook both of them. Why did you use our credit card? Susan stammered. It was for the family, no. It was fraud. Susan's face turned white. You wouldn't press charges. We already filed a report, I said. With our bank. And the police. That broke her. Right there, in our driveway, she collapsed into sobs. Bob finally spoke. You don't have to do this. I do, Jessica said. Because if we don't draw the line now, it never ends. We didn't go through with the charges. The police filed a report, the bank refunded the money, but we didn't press further. That wasn't the revenge we wanted. The real revenge? We cut them off. Cold. No calls. No visits. No holidays. No updates when we bought our house. No photos when we got pregnant. They weren't invited to the baby shower. Weren't at the birth. Didn't get a single picture of their granddaughter. People called us harsh. Said, but they're family. But sometimes, family is the storm you need to escape from. And we did. And yeah, I'll own my part. I should have said something sooner. Should have stood up earlier, instead of smiling through the fake dinners and awkward spa sessions. I let things slide because I wanted to keep the peace. But keeping the peace at the cost of your own dignity? That's not peace. That's surrender. So yeah, maybe I made mistakes. But I won't make them again. We built a new life. One with quiet mornings. Real conversations. And no fake gifts with strings attached. Jessica's smile now? It's different. It's real. And mine? It doesn't hide anything anymore. We didn't just get revenge. We got free. And in the end, that's worth more than any retreat ever could be.